Hey, what's up, people? Chip Mitchell back at you. Hey, I get questions all the time. Is a two-wheel safe? Is the Ryker safer than a three-wheel? Which one is safer? So I figured, hey, let's do a video. Hey, I'm glad you joined me. Let's get to it. Well, hey, how's it going, folks? My name is Chip Mitchell, and welcome to Enjoy the Ride. Got something a little special for you this time. You know, you get questions all the time about the Ryker, wherever we go. If you own one, people are so drawn to it. It's such a cool bike. I mean, it's so different. It's so unique. And wherever I go, I seem to find myself in conversations with strangers all the time. Hey, tell me about the bike. How is it? And one of the questions that comes up is, are you safe? Is this safer? I've run into a number of individuals that are retired or hadn't ridden a motorcycle in years, and they want to get back into it. And they always ask, are you safe on the Ryker? And, I wrestled through some of the same things myself when I was thinking about purchasing it. I'm like, wow, I'm in my 50s. Is this the right thing to do? Is it safe? And so I thought, why not just talk about a few things that, I personally researched. For me, these were things that I considered when wanting to purchase a Ryker. So let's jump on in, and hopefully this will answer questions that you may have as well when it comes to the Ryker. So is it safe? When I first brought this up to my wife, I mean, she reacted like this. She was like, are you crazy? What do you want? You want a motorcycle? And I get it. I get it. It can be a bit scary for some, and so I was, originally I've always wanted a motorcycle. I've always wanted a Harley, a Fat Boy, or some type of cruiser, and I never did it. And I got older, and so I started thinking, well, is a three-wheel motorcycle safer than a two-wheel? Is there some safety advantages in getting a three-wheel? And so I really just jumped into thinking about that to see if that was the case. And so in doing some of my own research, I asked the question, are Rykers safer than two wheels? And there was an interesting thing that came out that I realized that one study came out. It says of all types of motorcycles registered in the US, one study found the fatal crash rate of super sports, this is super sports bikes, to be 4 times greater than any of the other types of bikes. So in other words, these bikes are 4 times more likely to have fatal accidents than any other motorcycle. And so I was like, wow, okay. So I remember when these bikes first came out, I think when they first came out, the most popular one was the Ninja, right? The Ninja motorcycle. And these things, they, when it comes to the cool factor, these sport bikes are cool. I got to tell you, for me, they rival the Ryker. They're pretty amazing. You watch Mission Impossible, they got them. You watch Top Gun, Tom Cruise in the 80s. He had one on the runway, and they're just amazing machines. They are fine-tuned to do some incredible things out on the road, but they have a unique effect on you when you're riding them. And these are 4 times more likely than any other motorcycle to be in a fatal accident. So that kind of gave me a little bit more perspective when I was thinking about getting on a motorcycle, because I was like, I'm not getting one of these sports bikes. They're awesome. I've ridden one before. They're absolutely incredible. But they lend themselves to some desires and passions for speed that really can get you in a lot of trouble. So when I was making my own decision and thinking about two-wheel versus a three-wheel, I was saying to myself, man, I'm not getting the sport bike. So what we see so frequently in accidents and things that happen in these is just not the case in any other two-wheel. So we're not even talking about three wheels. We're just saying in any other two-wheel or three-wheel, these lead the way aggressively in fatalities and accidents. So, it's two. And then there were two things that I really wanted to understand, like what is really happening with the accidents and challenges that are associated with motorcycles in general. And there were two factors that really were that really stood out to me. Obviously, there are many others. I'm not an expert, but these were the ones that stood out to me and helped me in my thought process and my decision making about whether or not I should get a three-wheel. And one, when you think of fixed objects, listen to this: 25% of motorcycle deaths occur because of collisions with fixed objects. Now, this is outstanding. And not outstanding in a good way, in a bad way. I just sit there and go, wait a second. So you're telling me out of all the motorcycle deaths that occur out there, 25% of them is the motorcyclist and a fixed object, like a tree or telephone pole or guardrail or wall. Yeah, so you're telling me that then the rider is the one responsible solely for this. I remember years ago when my kids were small, I told my wife, I said, honey, we're never really a true family until we drive to Florida. We were living in Massachusetts at the time. And so we decided to drive to Florida. We had a station wagon. This was it. We had two small kids. And I'm like, yeah, this is it. And I remember we left around 7 p.m. in Massachusetts. And so we started driving. I started driving. The kids were in the back. I figured, well, I'll start at 7 because, by 9, 10 o'clock, my kids are tired. They're going to go to sleep. That way, boom, it's silent. No bathroom runs. No, I'm hungry. No, are we there yet? So I figured I started 7. By then, they would fall asleep by 9, 10 o'clock, and I would just crank through the night and drive all night. And sure enough, 9, 10 o'clock, the kids are out. I'm on the highway, 95, boom, I'm making the run. I'm driving all the way to Florida. Overnight, I drive till 6:30 in the morning. I'm like, great. 6:30, kids wake up. I've gone through the night. We've made a lot of headway. We stop for breakfast. I'm like, great. Then I say, okay, honey, I did the whole all night shift. Why don't you drive now from 7, 8 in the morning till we get to Jacksonville or something like that. And my wife gets in the car. She's driving. I'm like, finally, I get to lay down. I pull the seat back. I'm going to go to sleep. And literally 3 minutes, 5 minutes into it, I hear this brrr. I'm like, whoa, what was that? My wife was on the warning roadside there. And I was like, what happened? And she goes, I don't know. I go, what do you mean you don't know? I said, did you fall asleep? She says, no. And she's laughing. I go, you fell asleep. And then she says the famed word. She said, the road moved. Listen, the road is a fixed object. I said, you fell asleep. She goes, well, what do you expect? I took a Benadryl. I go, why would you take a Benadryl in the morning after I've driven all night? Pull the car over. She pulls the car over. I finish the ride. We get to Florida safely. Thank God. But, the fixed object thing, you've got no excuse. That's something that we can control. And I thought about that as I was thinking about the Ryker, that, 25% of these deaths are occurring by cyclists running into fixed objects. So I can control that. That's something that's on me. There are other factors that are on other people, but this one I can control. And so that helped me in my decision. The second thing is rider issues. Look at this guy. He's chilling. He's cruising down the highway. He's got his headphones on. He's got his feet up. I mean, it's rider error. and listen at this, it's nearly 2/3 of single vehicle motorcycle crashes are because of rider error. So when you think about, is the Ryker safe? Is it safer than a two-wheel? But let's just say motorcycles in general. There are two factors here that I can mitigate. This is totally on me. I don't have to worry about other factors out there, whether it be weather or whether it be other drivers. I can actually exercise control over these two issues and so I figured, man, that takes a lot of the fatalities and challenges of accidents out of it if I can focus on me and make sure that I'm making good choices. And so this brings me to my next thought. When I'm doing this, the choice is yours, and I realized that there are a lot of ways to mitigate accidents and fatalities when you think about a two-wheel or a three-wheel. And there were some factors here that really are in my control. These are in your control, and they can really manage how you ride and what you do and your overall safety for you and your loved ones. Number one, alcohol and drug impairment and distracted driving. These are things that I can control. These are things that I can manage to help support my desire to have a good time on the Ryker. And so I was like, wow, I can manage that, is the Ryker safer than a two-wheel? I'll get to that. I'll talk about a couple of things that I think really do set it apart. But before we get to that, realize that I can control drug and alcohol impairment and being distracted while driving. Number two, reckless driving and speeding. These are things that I can control. I actually can control that. So what does that do? Well, that makes riding safer for me, whether two or three. It makes it safer. The whole speeding thing, I get it. You see an open highway, you see something, you feel that adrenaline rush, and you just want to hit that bad boy, bam, and go. And obviously, two-wheel bikes, the acceleration, there's just no comparison on a Ryker, none whatsoever. And the challenges you can get into on any of those two-wheel bikes when it comes to speed is really real. A Ryker, yeah, it's fast and you can get into some trouble, but the acceleration, it's not going 0 to 60 in 2 seconds. It's just not doing that. But you got some bikes out there, man, that'll go 0 to 100 inside of 4 seconds. And that's just, whoa. It's an adrenaline rush, but it's also crazy and I believe reckless. The other part of that is recklessness. I can control that. I have full control over my ability to exercise good judgment and not be a reckless driver. Number three, road rage. There's a lot of incidents where folks will drive in such a way that trigger some serious emotional responses in road rage. And road rage leads to crashing and accidents and injury and fatalities. I decided I have to exercise mindfulness in the midst of challenging situations, whether I'm being verbally attacked or physically attacked by a vehicle or someone is not paying attention. I've got to remain calm so that I can exercise good judgment for mitigating the situation so that it's safe, and also exercising good judgment in the event that someone may be attacking me verbally so that I can remove myself from a situation that can be potentially dangerous and get myself in a safe position so that I can return home. At the end of the day, my goal is to get back home after I have a great time on the Ryker. Number four, poor or impaired visibility and drowsy or just sleepy. These are things I can control. If visibility is poor or impaired, I don't have to keep going. I can pull over. It's no different than being sleepy. You're drowsy. I don't have to engage in the ride. I can exercise good judgment and help mitigate the safety issues that are associated with poor visibility or being drowsy. Number 5, improper lane use, lane splitting. Obviously with the Ryker, you're not going to be able to do that. There are sometimes you can, but the wheelbase is so wide that you're not going to be able to do that as much. And I thought about that. I said, well, I don't have to do that. I don't have to put myself in a situation where I'm lane splitting and then someone doesn't see me coming and they pull out or open a door or whatever, and I wind up getting in an accident. I said, man, I can control that one. And these were 5 factors that I felt like I can control. And that helped me when I thought about, man, well, what am I going to do? Am I going to get this bike? Is this just up to fate, or are there some things that I can control? And these were 5 choices that I could make, 5 things that I could control and make my ride much safer. So I was excited about that, So what are some of the things that I learned about really having some tips? And here are a few tips that may ensure that you arrive at your destination and safely and unharmed. Number 1, make yourself visible. I decided, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to have to follow some of the statistics, follow the math. And one of the things that really convicted me was that most times when there's a motorcycle accident or someone they happen at intersections, and generally the person in the vehicle that has hit the motorcycle, when they ask what happened, why, they generally say, I did not see them. And there have been studies that are very clear that our mental state, our ability to process what we see is so conditional. Our mind is making best guess judgments. It's not accurate, which is hard to accept. But the brain, you can only focus on one thing. And the rest of it, the brain is calculating what it believes it to be. And due to frequency, the brain is saying, oh, I've been here before. This is what it is. And it's not actually seeing reality. Now, I know that's hard to believe, but it's true. And that's why people don't see motorcycles, because their brain is not accustomed to motorcycles, whether 2 or 3 wheels. What it's accustomed to are 4-wheel vehicles. And so when you focus on the light or focusing on a car in front of you, the rest of those images in your peripheral vision are really best guess estimates in your brain. This is why magicians are so good at illusions, because they understand how the brain works. And so they know that the brain is only making best guess, so they can hide things and do things that appear to have magical powers, but it's not. It's just an illusion. So what do? Make yourself visible. Wear bright clothing. During the day, I wear high-vis gear. If I'm not wearing my high-vis gear, I do have my flashers on my bike just so that I am seen. I want to put something out there that is different, that triggers the brain to go, hey, what is that? Because the brain is now going to assess it, and it's going to go, what is it? And it means your eyes are going to focus on it. That way it brings attention. That's why high-vis vests, you see people out on the turnpike, they wear them. Why? Because the brain it triggers the brain to go, wait, that's abnormal. And so the eyes will focus on it and they pay attention to it. So, you may not like the colors. You may say, oh, it doesn't look cool. But I tell you what, it makes you visible. Number 2, I decided I was going to wear appropriate gear. I can control the things that I can control. But there are a number of things out there that I can't mitigate. A number of decisions that people are making out there that I have nothing to do with, and they do not consider me. And in those cases where someone makes some bad choices, it can put me in peril. So I decided I was going to wear appropriate safety gear, and helmet is one of them. I have my safety jackets. I also have an airbag vest. I have pants, I have boots and shoes. I decided that for me, this was best, as I'm deciding, is a 3-wheel safer than a 2? And my conclusions were there are some challenges that we both face, both 3-wheel and 2-wheel, and how can I best mitigate it? 1, it was personal choices that I make. And number 2, there were things that I can do for the outside factors that I couldn't control. And one of those is wear high-vis gear and wear appropriate safety gear. That always worked. Number 3, Something I could do to help mitigate it was anticipate the conditions. It may be clear and sunny when you start out, but things change quickly. You get out there, it looks great, feels great. All of a sudden, the weather changes, whether it gets super cold, whether it gets super hot, whether it gets rainy, whether it gets cloudy, foggy, snow, ice, conditions. These things all change. And it's in my best interest that I anticipate that. I think through that. You don't want to be rash in your decision making. And I decided I wasn't going to be rash. I'm going to think through those things and make decisions that enable me, one, to get home, but also to ride another day. Number 4, awareness always. Some people like to prefer this as defensive driving. I remember when I was getting my driver's license when I was a young kid, 16 and a half, and I took a driver school class, and the guy would take you out in the car, and it was called defensive driving. And what it basically meant was that you need to really drive for other people. And I remember we would get to intersections all the time, and he would always say, blow your horn twice, toot, toot. And I was like, what? That's so rude. He goes, no. He says, you want to make sure they know you're there. And every time we passed an intersection, this guy would have me blowing the horn, toot, 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 toot. And it's funny. I did it, because I wanted to pass the class. But now when I ride my motorcycle, because I know that the vast majority of motorcycle accidents happen at intersections. When I'm coming up an intersection and someone's trying to turn into my lane, or I toot my horn, toot, toot, a couple times. I do it just so that I'm making them aware. I'm doing whatever I can. Yes, whether I have the high vis or my flashing light, which you can see on one of my other videos, I do it to gain attention, just so that I could be safe. Yeah, is it annoying? Yeah, do you have to do it? I just, I'm trying to be aware. That's one of the things that I thought I could mitigate and also ensure safety so that my loved ones were not afraid of me killing myself. And there are a few facts you should know. In 2020, motorcycle riders involved in fatal crashes had higher percentages of alcohol impairment than drivers of any other motor vehicle type. This is blow away. 27% of these fatalities, these crashes, were motorcycles. 23% were passenger cars. 19% were light trucks, and only 3% of trucks were involved in fatal crashes that involved alcohol. The moral of the story is get a truck. But I didn't know this. I'm like, wow, so that's really high. 27% motorcycles, folks drinking and driving motorcycles. Boy, it's a mixture for disaster. It sets the pace in fatal crashes. Obviously that's very sad, but it was comforting to me because I go, you know what? I can control that. I can control that. That one I can control. So that helped me in my decision making. Alcohol. 29% of motorcycle operators were intoxicated. In this study by NHTSA, it also found that 40% of the riders between the ages of 40 and 44 years of age who died in crashes in 2019 were drunk. Whoa, man. That's sobering. That's ironic to use that word. But that tells you something about the safety of motorcycles, and that number can come down, the fatalities. That number can shrink if we deal with some of the things that unfortunately attribute to it. Motorcycle helmet use. I know people feel a lot of different things. Pennsylvania, I don't have to wear a helmet, but I wear a helmet. Motorcycle helmets save lives. They reduce the severity of injuries to riders and their passengers. That is a fact. It's funny, playing football. I was fortunate enough to play in college. The idea of running through lines and people without a helmet is absolutely absurd. And football, you probably get 23, in rare cases, 25 miles an hour. And you wouldn't think of not running into each other without a helmet. Now, some would say, "Oh, what about rugby?" Rugby's it's a different. There's a technique that is used. Well, why do you wear a helmet? Well, because it can kill you, literally in football through concussions. We're seeing that. And when I think about riding a motorcycle, I'm going a lot faster than 20 miles an hour, and all it takes is one time, and it can put you in a very difficult situation. Now, I'm not here condemning anyone who doesn't wear a helmet, but for me, it just seemed right. It just seemed a good thing that I could manage the fear of riding a 3 versus a 2. So my personal thoughts on a 3-wheel versus a 2-wheel. Where am I on that? I think that a 3-wheel is safer. Here's why. Number one, braking. On a 2-wheel, the weight distribution, the center of gravity, overall weight of the bike, and the fluids has an impact on how your bike will react in braking. And on a 2-wheel, you're dealing with whether you're going straight, whether you're turning, you're dealing with front brake compression versus rear brake compression, and mitigating the speed of which you're pulling that front brake versus the rear. You're dealing with gravel. You're dealing with, is it on a turn? Is it straight? There are so many factors that you have to calculate, because you can do it safely on a 2-wheel, but that takes practice, an enormous amount of practice. It takes an understanding, a level of expertise that only comes through time. Whereas on a Ryker or 3-wheel, you got one brake pedal, and you got 3 wheels on the turf, and you can hit that brake, and it's got the ABS, and it is going to manage braking excellently. It knows how to do that. You don't have to think about it. All you have to do is get on the brake, and you don't have to worry about turning. You don't have to worry about it flipping over. You don't have to worry about the center of gravity, the weight distribution. You don't have to worry about any of that. The Ryker handles it by far. When I think about, is the 3-wheel safer than the 2-wheel? When it comes to braking, absolutely. There is no comparison. Now, there are some high-end bikes that are starting to put some computer chips in there. BMW is doing some things that are really amazing. But hey, I'm not riding a $30,000 BMW bike that will do that. I'm riding a Ryker, and in general, the Ryker, it's unmatched in a 2-wheel when it comes to braking. Unmatched, and clearly safer than a 2-wheel. Number 2, cornering. Nailing that favorite set of corners on a motorcycle is a part of that enjoyable experience, right? It is awesome. There are so many cliches and acronyms out there about riding a 2-wheel in corners and how to corner. And let me tell you, again, like braking, it's all about practice and exercising judgment, realizing slow in, fast out. You also have a challenge with a 2-wheel. With a 2-wheel motorcycle, when you go into a corner, you would think slower is better. It's actually not. You want a little speed, because what that does is it spreads that tire base. You got more tire because of the gravity and the pressure on the road. And so that gives you more grip on the road. But at the same time, speed endangers it depending on the corner. Every corner is different. Most of those accidents that happen on the corner is that they were going too fast, or they hit the angle wrong. And you've got to really mitigate that. The other thing you're dealing with is the gravel. You're dealing with oncoming traffic. You're dealing with braking. You're dealing with, you can't see all the way around the curve. There's so many factors on cornering. I tell you, on a 2-wheel, man, it is awesome cornering. It is amazingly fun. But it takes expertise. It's not something you just hop on there and you think because that motorcycle will go that you can do it. It takes practice. It takes being instructed. And every corner is different. That's the scary thing. Every corner is different. So what you may get on one corner is totally different on another corner. And so how do you know that? Well, it only comes with experience. And so here I am at 56 jumping on a two-wheel. I go, that just doesn't make any sense to me. It's not safer than a three-wheel. With the Ryker, the Ryker's computer chip is going to manage that corner. Can you get into trouble? Yes, you can. But the Ryker, you've got a wheelbase that's absolutely incredible. It's wider. You know, it's easier what you do with the corner than what you do on a bike, and it manages it well. So cornering. The third one for me, my personal thoughts on why a three-wheel is safer than a two-wheel is the footprint. You know, the footprint of the Ryker is so much wider. You know, they call it the Y factor, right? That's what Can-Am calls it. It's so much safer than a two-wheel, just for that in itself. The base, the management of the cycle yourself, your feet are always on the pegs. You don't have to worry about that. The wheelbase lends itself to greater stability. The computer chip in there that handles stability so that it doesn't tip over. You've got that at your side. You've got the braking factor. You've got the tire touching the concrete. You've got a wider tire base than what you do on a motorcycle. That footprint, boy, I tell you, hands down, is so much better and so much safer than on a two-wheel. These are my personal thoughts on this. Now, I'm not saying these are the end all. What I am saying is, for me, these were things that factored into my decision as far as getting a three-wheel over and above a two-wheel. And what do I say? Well, in many ways, riding Can-Am Ryker Spider or Can-Am Ryker is similar to riding a motorcycle, but in some ways it's not. The dynamics of this bike are so different than a two-wheel. I know it's classified as a motorcycle, but it's very different than a two-wheel motorcycle. And it offers us some incredible advantages of a three-wheel over and above a two-wheel. The simplicity of operation in of itself lends itself to, hey, anyone can get on here and learn, and the learning curve is so much shorter than on a two-wheel and so much safer. Listen, thank you so much for being with me today. My name is Chip Mitchell. I'm so excited you were with me. Please, if you have not subscribed, please subscribe. Click the subscribe button. Join me as I enjoy the ride. And I want to thank you for being with me. Have a great day and enjoy the ride. Take care.